It's time to talk about the very best comic books you could buy this week. We had a lot of really good indie stuff. We got a couple things from Marvel and DC as well. And here to talk to me about that, as always, is Drew for Comics Lead. How you doing, Drew?
I am doing terrific. Let's talk about some great comics, Wes. I love talking great comics.
Absolutely. And we got to start out with Ablaze, one of our favorite publishers, Life Zero #5, Stefano Vietti, Marco Cicchetto. Now, this story has been out for a little while. It was released in Europe before. It's being re-released in America as new comic books. I did not see this issue really coming. I thought this was a straight-up zombie, horror comic book, and it turns out there are a lot of things that we didn't know, specifically the main character didn't know either, that are revealed in this comic book, and they pretty much change everything. I don't know. It's a lot dirtier and grosser and a little bit more evil than I thought at the very beginning.
You are absolutely correct. We are given one hell of a mind screw of a twist in this issue, and it's heartbreaking when you find out. When you get the twist, and we find out what they could have done in certain situations in prior issues. It's like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? But the crew, our guys, they got to head back into the town, and they're given a very unique twist on what happened in this town. So many reveals and twists and turns in this. When we did our review of this, I didn't want to spoil a thing because you got to read this. It is really damn good and one of the best comics out right now, one of the best of the year.
Yeah, this particular issue has a lot less action than the previous issues, but there's so much context and weight, and it changes the entire story. I absolutely recommend going out there and getting Life Zero, specifically in issue #5, because it was a very good take on an old classic horror story that we've been reading about and viewing on television and movies for a very long time. Very unique take, so I definitely tip of the cap to Stefano Vietti for coming up with that one. Very good stuff. Now let's go something a little bit more family-friendly. I'm a big fan of the Canto series. We're through the first two kind of volumes of the main story, and we get a one-shot kind of interlude here, Canto Tales of the Unnamed World from IDW. David Booher with Drew Zucker on art, but this time we also have Liana Kangas as well as Jorge Kuroda helping out. And this is basically the main character's telling this character he's called the Bard, and he needs to hear a story that he's never heard before, and apparently he's pretty much immortal, so he's heard every story ever. You get the main three characters, including Canto, telling stories with different styles of art. Not a whole lot of context given to the Canto journey and all that stuff. It's a little side thing, but it does give you some cool kind of lore building within the Canto universe specifically.
Yeah, still, I know you talked about this issue. I forget how many videos ago, this series, but I am aware of this. I haven't read it yet. I'm aware of this series. I know how great it is. I met the creators at San Diego Comic-Con. I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. But this is on my must-to read list, unfortunately.
Definitely, if you are a fan of all ages comic books and you've been a fan of the Canto journey, this is a nice little side adventure, going to give you some new takes on the universe itself. So I quite enjoyed it, although not quite as impactful as the mainline stuff. Let's go over to your very first comic book recommendation from Source Point Press. Good Boy #2, Garrett Gunn, Christina Blanche writing, Kit Wallace on art.
Yeah, this was a solid issue and one of the best. I mean, one of the best of the series, because this is volume 2 now. And volume 1 was effectively a redo of John Wick, but inverting it where the dog survives and the master dies. But this one with volume 2 is taking a whole new path where we're learning about our dogs and like this farm, where they come from, where they go to retire. And we get some backstory on these marked dogs, the work they did before they retired, and it is nasty. There's a lot of blood involved. And at one point, they're told a message through some sick means of where they need to go to. And it looks like Flint, our hero dog, is joining them since he's marked as well. And this is so much fun. It's only getting better. Very creative. Garrett Gunn is a great creator. Yeah, you have to check out Good Boy #2.
A lot of people have been singing the praises since the very first issue. Nice to see that they've kept up the quality as they enter into the second volume. You're also recommending Pentagram of Horror #2 from Scout Comics. Marco Fontanelli writing and illustrating this one.
It took a minute for this one to come out because issue 1 came out, I forget how long ago issue 1 came out. But issue 2, this one did not pull any punches. The story is incredible. Everything about this story feels so terrifyingly real and believable. Even when it gets to a point of like dying in a dark veil, it all feels so believable. Like, the verisimilitude of this is palpable. I mean, how far are you willing to go with your own hate to make a world you think that we deserve? It is dark, twisted, creepy. And I truly love this series. This is one of the best horror series, even though it's only been 2 issues, but both issues have been knockouts. Yeah, Pentagram of Horror, number 2. Check this out.
Very nice. We're also going to go over to another publisher we don't talk about all that often here on the channel, Behemoth Comics, Redman number 1, Matt Frank writing and illustrating. I've seen the cover. I haven't read the comic book. It appears that there's some type of maybe superhero based on a Jack from playing cards.
It looks like that upon first glance, but apparently this is based on a Japanese property. I was unaware of this. So I'm not the biggest kaiju fan. I'm not the biggest Ultra Sevens. I know a little bit here and there, but reading this, so I went into this with low expectations, not knowing what to expect. It's beautifully illustrated by Matt Frank. The narrative as well is fun, about life being competitive with predators and prey. The fight scenes in this with the kaiju and the Redman are gorgeous. And the premise of the story, besides what I just said about the predators and prey, there was a signal apparently that was sent out in the early 70s to viewers that saw this fight happen between a Redman and his kaiju very briefly. And I love that premise, that concept. It's pretty cool. But now, does the Redman look silly in this comic? Yes. But can I look past that? Absolutely.
Indie comics really are where the real quality is in comic books right now, but we do have a couple of comic books from the big 2 to talk about. First up, we'll go over to Marvel Comics. One of the things that I've really enjoyed from Marvel are these throwback in continuity issues that are taking place during the 90s back in the day. One of those is Venom Lethal Protector. This week we get issue number 3. David Michelini, Ivan Fiorelli. A lot of people like Venom. It doesn't have anything to do with the Lethal Protector story, but we do get David Michelini, one of the great writers of Venom, coming back in here with another take, spinning some more in-continuity tales from back in the day.
Yeah, and this series has only gotten better. I'm really digging this series. In this issue, Eddie he's given a deal where he can, in exchange to fix his weakness to the sonic sounds, Eddie's going to sign a contract to be a babysitter pretty much for a bunch of elite millionaires at their private condos. They do some testing. Hey, it works. Eddie's symbiote has very interesting side effects along the way after being injected with the anti-sonics formula. And Eddie Venom, they get some sweet revenge for what was said about him by the doctor that did this to him. And but what was great about it is that we don't see what happened to the doctor, what Eddie and Venom did to her. But we're told it narratively through by David Michelini, and it is terrifying. It's nasty. It's great. I almost don't want to visualize what happened. But this is very solid and fun. I cannot recommend this series enough. Venom Lethal Protector number 3.
If you're not enjoying the current spin in the Marvel Comics continuity, these throwback issues are an oasis of quality in a desert full of low-quality comic books. So I definitely, if you're not loving Marvel right now, go check out what David Michelini is doing. Go check out what Peter David and some of the others are doing, because there's a lot of good stuff out there. Now let's go over to DC Comics. I was pretty bummed out. I kind of had some high expectations coming in this week. Not very much turned out in my favor, other than Action Comics 1044, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Ricardo Federici. We're getting ready to head back to Earth, but Superman Clark Kent has to free the slaves and defeat Mongol before that happens. He's got a plan, but Mongol's also got a plan. Superman Clark Kent needs to release the Authority. He needs to get his teammates back, and Mongol needs to keep Omok on his side by basically resurrecting the characters that died in the very first issue of the Warworld Saga thing happening. So you have these competing interests, and we got this really weird character called the Orphan. It's a baby with a bottle, but apparently has a lot of powers. A lot of cool stuff going on here. I'm really anxious for the ending of this, because I think it has gone on for far too long, even though the quality has been very good.
Yeah, it has been going on for a while now, but like you said with the Orphan, we given the origin of the Orphan, and it goes all the way back to the Source Wall breach back in Justice League No Justice, and that was 3-4 years ago. Kind of a deep pull at this point. But yeah, you really feel the tension ratcheting up with this issue, and it's really getting to a boiling point now where it's like it needs to come out now. The forces need to start fighting now. We need to get that big confrontation. And the backup in this was actually really good too. And the character they mentioned, talk about a 90s callback with that character. I hadn't seen him in, I can't recall the last time, probably the 1990s. But yeah, I love how the humans now are getting involved with Clark and the Genesis power. And yeah, it just all the way through, this comic is just solid. You got to check out Action Comics.
Definitely been one of the hotter titles over at DC. Definitely, I would say World's Finest is number one, but Action Comics isn't all that far behind. Hopefully they keep up the quality when Clark Kent returns to Earth, which should happen in the very near future. And we've also got a recommendation from you. I'm not as big on the Swamp Thing from Ram V series. I felt it started out way too slow, just wasn't giving a whole lot of answers, so I trailed off. You have stuck with it, and you have been repaid with some quality from Ram V and Mike Perkins in this 14th issue. I believe there's only one left.
One or two left, because this is number 14. I think it's 15 or 16, but either way, it's unfortunately coming to an end too soon. But the art by Mike Perkins is incredible in this. His art has just been incredible all the way through. And in this issue, we get the sentient alien planets make their way to Earth, and they want to purge the Earth of the machinations. So Levi and the Green Lanterns have a plan, and it goes somewhere. It goes wild and crazy. It gets trippy. Trinity shows up as well, and I also think we get a minor key first appearance with a little twist on Swamp Thing at the end. So I don't think that's happened before. And it was when I saw what happened, I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm curious to see where this goes. But yeah, it's been this whole series has just been so much damn fun, wild, that I can't recommend this enough. Swamp Thing 14.
There you go, folks. Those are our recommendations this week. Had a lot of fun, especially on the indie scene. Drew, do you have any final words?
Go to Kickstarter and check out the Merc Summer Beach Party special we got going on. We just crossed 57,000, I believe. We got 4 days to go.
I talked about David Booher and Drew Zucker's comic book Canto earlier in the video. I actually got to sit down with these guys quite a few years ago talking about the original series, how it came about, what their plans for it were. It was a multi-part interview, but this one is really where they talk about Canto. I really love this series. I think it's a fantastic world. These guys are great. If you don't know David Booher and Drew Zucker, definitely watch this video and get to know it.